Hey guys, Mini Ruckus here. Today I'm going to do my Death Guard tutorial and show how I'm painting my Death Guard using Streak and Grime, some contrast paints, and nice easy layers. The final result that you can take into any of your Death Guard being as such. So on one of my separate tutorials, the first video I've posted on YouTube, I showed how to do my slime bases. So today we're just going to paint the main body of the Death Guard guy, and I've got one fresh model, and I've got a bunch of them at different steps throughout the process, so we can show as we go. This is the current one we're working on. So let's get this guy primed up, and we're going to be using any kind of black primer you have. I'm going to be using Proccess black primer from Monument Hobbies. Trying to become more consistent with like recording YouTube stuff. Yeah, that's a better way of putting it. It wasn't up to my standards, personally. Plus, I've been a little congested with work and thoughts of things outside of work and whatnot that I haven't put much effort into it. And, well, let's get on a good repertoire of creating fun content. I'll probably redo that Adeptus Mechanicus video, too, on how I painted that one guy in like an hour and 20 minutes. So if there's like an HQ or something like that you want me to paint, I can go pick that up and redo that. Just blowing air, trying to get this to dry. Just going to do a quick prime. We're going to do a zenithal with our white ink to create our values. And then we're also going to go over it again with a little bit of a wraith bone. Okay, so we'll let that final coat dry. I'll do a quick washout, and we'll hit this with the zenithal. Get it all nice with our white inks. Now, priming and doing your zenithal, you could very well do this with dry brushes. I have an airbrush, so I'm going to use an airbrush. So tons of people will dry brush on their values for their zenithal. I'm just not doing it because I have access to a tool that I enjoy. Alright, so white inks. For our white ink, we're going to use Liquitex acrylic ink. Give that a good old shakeroo. And we're just going to put 4 or 5 drops in. And then I'm also going to add maybe 1 to 2 drops of Josana's Magic Mix or Josana's Flow Medium, which you can get on Amazon for real low cheap. It's a nice thing to use. And then a little swig of thinner. If you're using an airbrush, this is the consistency. It's just something you're going to have to play with as you learn your airbrush. I know you can't really see it, but you got to have a nice semi-watery flow to it so it sprays nicely out of the airbrush. I'll wash our tin out. Alright, and then we're going to just start creating our values. I'm going to choose an angle and just start getting those shadows nicely built up all throughout the miniature. And this is where you can really kind of make this your own. You can go as bright or as dull as you want, create the shadows how you see fit. Whatever lighting you're going from. Nice and easy. Alright, now we're going to do another quick washout. Alright, now we're going to add a little bit of our bone hues. And this is a part where you can play with. We're going to use some Wraithbone and some Rakarth flesh. And again, I'm going to spray this through the airbrush. You can easily dry brush this on. I'm going to add a little... I'm probably going to go 2-to-1 with Wraithbone and Rakarth flesh. Just to kind of darken up my Wraithbone slightly. That's awesome! Add a little bit of thinner. I'm going to add more Joseno's mix. That's what's in this little dropper here. And then we're going to mix this up and we're going to see if we like that consistency. Yes. And we're going to throw that in our airbrush. And now we're going to do kind of a tighter zenithal, focusing more around the armor areas. But don't be afraid of a little bit of overspray, or if you over dry brush, if you are dry brushing this. The result is going to be same but different, right? We're going to be using some contrast paints to kind of have some fun and add in a little bit of color. But really what we're creating now is a base for our bone armor. I find myself needing to trust the process while I'm painting in this scheme using the streak and grime. Simply because the mini's going to look a little wonky and very oddly colorful in the beginning. But once you put on that streak and grime, it really starts coming together. It'll stain and tint our armor to look like our bone, and then really pull all those colors together nicely. So there we go. Got a nice base for our bone armor. Okay, we're going to let that dry for just a moment, because I do want to do a nice light dry brush with just our plain Wraithbone. Just kind of build up some of those accents before we start laying down some base contrast paints. Alright, where's my dry brush set? There we go. Nice dry brush set that I recently picked up. We're going to have more fun with today from Artify. It's about a $22 dry brush set. Very cheap, but works really nicely. You can get these on Amazon. Everything brush-wise and thinner-wise you can get on Amazon on the low. Because we like to paint, but we also like to be cost-efficient, right? We already spend tons of money on all our models. Let's save money in some aspects, but still have great products to use. Now we're going to come over. We're just going to lightly touch some of these raised edges. I'm not going to see much detail gain, but as we start throwing contrast paints on, it'll be a little bit more prominent, especially around the armor bits. We just want to pull out just some of the detail on some of these raised edges. Alright, that's where we're at. So we're going to start with some contrast paints. Let's get some base layers down. First we're going to go with some Plague Bearer Flesh. And I'm also going to use these nice AIT Art Kalinsky Cable Rounds, 3-pack for 18 bucks on Amazon as well. And we're going to start getting these pauldrons all done up. Now one of these pauldrons has a face, so we're just going to get the inside of this pauldron here, like so, because we're going to use some Gilliman Flesh and maybe some Vulpus Pink and start and blend that into a nice face color popping out. The other one, not as much. This one we can kind of just throw this in. We're not caring if we're consistent at all. We are just blocking out some color areas. And we are going to layer up mildly over these contrast paints. So my goal is to get kind of maybe a sub Tabletop Plus effect from all of this. Looks like it's got more detail than just putting on some base layers and letting it fly. But you could totally just block out all your colors and then put on your streak and grime and still have a very cool looking model that you can still layer up on after the fact. Okay, maybe a couple more passes here or there. Really get this color looking nice. Thing to be mindful of is as you're using these contrast paints, we want to try to avoid getting anything on the white armor as best as we can. I like to say this and I'll say it again, I say it all the time, brush control is key in this hobby. Brush control, brush control, brush control. Those that are live here with me on Twitch know that I never shut up about it. We want to be quick, efficient, and controlled. Alright, next color. We're going to get some Sigvald Burgundy. And we are going to use this for all of the drapes and trappings around his armor. Little loincloth here. That's fine, how you doing today? Oh, get a little bit more, I watered that down a little too much. One color I didn't grab was my Vulpus Pink. There we go. So now we're going to get some Vulpus Pink and a little bit of our Gilliman Flesh. And these are the colors we're going to use on all of the Nurgle bits. Any tentacles, little bits coming out. Probably start with my Vulpus Pink. Start hitting the little tentacle bits. This little tube's looking a little pimply and rotten. This is looking good. There's a little rotten tentacle stuck right up in here in his armpit. Look at that. Right up in his armpit. Okay, let's give that a few seconds to kind of dry a little bit. So, there we can start doing this. Let's take some of this Gilliman flesh and some of that Vulpus pink. You can mix this however you want to. I usually just put like a drop of Gilliman flesh into my Vulpus pink, and I like to just kind of go over my tentacles. Just a little bit. It's a very subtle transition that it'll make, but in the long run, I think it helps. That small dinge or tint of brown just makes it look more real. So while that's doing that, we're going to get some skeleton horde. Do you have a normal water paint ratio for all of your glazing? Honestly, I kind of play it by ear. I don't measure anything out because I think that if in your mind you have to constantly think about how you're mixing, I think that takes away from the prospect of trial and error and bettering yourself and your ability to create that muscle memory. If you're always thinking, oh, I need 2 drops of this and 1 drop of this and 3 drops of this, you're losing your ability to play with your own saturation. We're using the skeleton horde on any skulls, and we're going to do a light skeleton horde over some of these skulls as well. Generally, I'll just dip my brush, the very light tip, in my water pot and mix it into my paints, and I'll slowly add more water or more paint based off of the consistency. But everything I do is with extremely thin paints when I am glazing Asnabal. Very, very thin. And I mean like super saturated. So no set amount, I kind of just wing it. I think winging it has worked for me, and maybe as I become more skilled. Yes, that's why I always use a wet palette, because I have water right here with me, and it keeps my paints. Naturally, just putting paints on your wet palette will add a little bit of thinness and viscosity to the paints, which does help. So if you need more water, obviously you got water right here in your palette. You got a paint pot or a water pot right next to you. So really just thin as you go and play with it. We're going to use Gilliman flesh, and we're going to start hitting up some of these these faces and some of these skulls hanging on his belt. And we're also going to take this into the shoulder pad that kind of has a facial detail added into it. I think if you follow somebody's, and this is just me, right? Everything that I'm saying is my own prospect of how I enjoy painting. But in my opinion, if you're following other people's guidelines for how to saturate your paints, you're not learning how to do it yourself and finding your own needs based off of how you enjoy painting. Missed a little pimply bit up here. Okay, so we're going to take some of that Gilliman flesh and some of that Vulpus pink, and we're going to start painting this face, and we're pulling towards the front of the face. And we're going to let the rest of that just kind of blend in naturally to the green. Okay, now we're going to take a little bit of this Vulpus pink, and we're going to hit the tongue. And I think I'm gonna stop about halfway down the tongue, and now I'm gonna mix in a little bit of that Gilliman flesh, and then pull that up and into the top of the tongue, just so we can get a subtle transition when that dries. I hate my weight palette. I pull it away. I pull away from the main glop of paint and wet that. Yeah, I do the same thing, Flipnut. Like, I'll have a main drop, but whenever I'm mixing, I'm going into the paint and pulling it out so I can play with it. That way I'm not totally ruining my full amount of paint on the palette itself. You are a wonderful guy. You know that? I did not know that, but I appreciate your comment. That is awesome. That makes my day, 100%. Okay, let's take just some pure Gilliman flesh. And maybe let's hit just the front of this face a little bit. It's going to be a little bit dark, but that's fine, because even after the contrast paints, we're going to use some normal paints. And we're going to layer up over that a bit. It doesn't need to be perfect. Just needs to look as good as you want it to look. Maybe take some of this into this little Scully head hanging around his waist here. You know what? Maybe we'll take some Vulpus pink and we'll come in and hit the little fleshy bits in his neck. Bring some detail to those bloody details. Let's go back to our Vulpus pink. Let's hit this little fleshy bit here on the foot. It's kind of spilling out from his undersuit. Looking all gross. Let's see if there's any other ones hiding around. I don't think so. You never know with these Death Guard. They sneak all their little fleshy bits on you, and then you're just like, oh crap, there's one. Okay. I think the gas canister on the side, I think the one up here should be orange. Should we make this like an orange, but blend this one into like a nice yellow or something like that? What do you guys think? Thanks, man. Always rocking that pompadour, you know? I'm thinking maybe orange and then orange yellow. So let's get a little bit of Griffhound orange. And let's get this little gas tank up here painted. So for those that end up watching this on YouTube, yes, I'm using a wet palette. I'm not adding any extra mediums into my contrast paints. By putting them on the wet palette, it's naturally helping their flow. And with what I'm doing today, it's all I need. Just that little bit of saturation from the palette to help these flow somewhat better. Again, every color and every layer we're working on, we're practicing that brush control. We're trying to stay off of the bits that we want to stay white. Contrast paints love to stain areas that you are not intended to be on. Awesome. We got an orange canister. Now I think I'm going to play with something because we want the lower canister to be more yellow. This is a very orange yellow, so I think I'm going to put this on the palette next to my Griffhound orange, and I think I'm gonna paint this on the top, and then I'm going to use, without cleaning my brush, I'm going to go right into a little bit of this Griffhound orange, and then I'm going to start pulling this down. That way we get kind of a nice color change going on. going to go back to my Griffhound, pull that back up a little bit. I really do love this Griffhound orange. I think this is a fantastic contrast paint. I used it all over the clothy bits of my Poxwalkers, and I love this color. It is a very vibrant orange, but it holds its color so well. Like over a nice zenithal, you just really get that nice pop of color. Let's pull a little bit more of that Griffhound orange in. Let's go back to our Iandin yellow. Let's maybe just pull that up a little bit. Boom. I kind of like this Iandin yellow, and I think I'm going to take a little bit of this and just touch the top of this canister. I dig it. Awesome. Let's let that dry. All right. Now, let's get some snakebite leather. Don't need to use too much of this, but anywhere there's a nice little clothy bit, like these wraps here around this hose, let's throw some of that snakebite leather on here and get that going. Get these colors nice and blocked out. Don't need to worry too much about getting the inside. Again, all of our inner details are kind of going to be grimed up. Oh yeah, don't ever overthink either. That is a very good point. Great thing about contrast paints and painting and how I'm painting is just kind of winging it. Now, whether it be Death Forest green, Monument Hobbies yellow green, any kind of greens you want. I'm going to take olive green from AK Interactive and then grass green from AK Interactive, and I'm going to layer these over my Plague Bearer flesh. So I'm going to put a little bit of a drop on my palette, because we are going to do minimal layering over our contrast paints just to try to build up some of that color. This is not necessary. This is just a step that I like to do on all of my Plaguey boys. And I'm not being clean. I'm not painting clean layers. I'm being very messy, kind of just dabbing parts of the mini because I do want this to look imperfect. Let me start pulling this in. We'll kind of pull this from this face. When I'm painting like this, I kind of like to say I'm doing a messy dry brush. I'm dry wet brushing. Because I'm not being too cautious. I'm just kind of getting a nice little layer. My brush is obviously just messed up, and I'm just kind of stabbing it in. Now I'm going to take that grass green, or whatever brighter green you may be using, and now I'm gonna be more prominent on just using a stabbing technique, or stippling technique, some may say. And I'm just kind of layering that over what I just did. Now maybe I want to go a little bit brighter. Let's push more towards just using our grass green. Easy. A little bit more green. That's all you need. Shoot first, think never. There you go. Alright, let's take our skeleton horde. I think our skulls need another little pass of this skeleton horde. A little too white for my liking. And maybe we'll put this in around his neck just a little bit, just to get some of those yellows and perfectness. And maybe we'll take this into the face. Okay. Let's clear that, and now we're going to take the full skeleton horde, and let's get this horn. And let's look for any spiky details that we want to be more of a bone color. I'm thinking maybe the horn on his face. What else are we seeing? Are there any more spikes or anything? I'm not seeing any. Oh, you know what? We forgot to do the skull. Let's throw a bunch of skeleton horde on this skull. Look at that. Alright, put a layer on. Let's let that dry before the next one. So I'm actually going to get some solid colors here. I'm going to get some volcanic yellow or any bright yellow, and deep orange or any orange you have. And I'm just going to thin this down. And when I'm talking about thinning my paints, I'm going to be playing around with this kind of a consistency. Play with water as you see fit. And then I'm going to dab it off my brush on my paper towel. And I'm going to paint this little maggot down here with a little bit of this orange. I'm also going to look around. I don't believe he has too many of them. If any, he actually doesn't have any. This guy has no pimples whatsoever. Well, that's just fine. So I'm also going to take this and start just messily pulling this into my little canister here. We're not being perfect with it. And we're not painting the whole thing. We're just making it look very choppy and gross. So we're going to do minimal layering over our contrast paints. Look a little bit more rustic. Let's add some of that yellow into our orange. And maybe stipple in that same area, but we're stippling a little bit less. We'll take this down. Now we've got some yellows, we'll take this down. I'm just going to brush this over our little lower tank here. Looks just slightly more worn, I hope. To me it does, and I like it. I like it, so I'm gonna leave it. All right. Now, any kind of gray or gray blue, however you want to mix it up, I'm going to use anthracite gray. And I'm also going to use a lighter blue my instances, I like to use Ducat Blue here. I love its vibrancy. We're going to take that anthracite gray and we're going to paint this little tube. Let's get back in the camera focus, yeah? And then I'm just going to take some of the anthracite gray, start mixing in my lighter blue. You can play with this however bright or however dark you want it, and I'm just going to start touching just the top of this. Now maybe let's just go straight light blue or Ducat blue, and maybe we just paint in just a finer area and really just touch the tippy top of this hose. There's another little hose bit up here. Let's get this guy too. I love the Death Guard models with really just needing to look around and see what's where, you know. Ooh, look at that. Look what we missed. See the little tentacle on his arm, guys? Gotta be nice and controlled for this one. Alright, let's go back to our yellow. And let's hit this little maggot bit coming in out of this little skull. There's a weird hose coming out of the skull, and so you know what? I think I'm going to make that blue as well. Just going to brush the side of my brush against that. Done. Cool. Okay. Little tentacle bit back here that we can see. Let's throw some contrast paint on that. Again, we're using our Vulpus Pink. We're just touching the top of it. Doesn't need to be perfect because for the most part it's hidden. Alright. Who's that? Hunter David. Thank you for that follow. I'm going to get some Warm Brown by Monument Hobbies. I'm also going to get some Advanced Flesh Tone and some Burgundy. We're going to do some quick layering over our Vulpus Pink. Advanced Flesh Tone. I am also going to add a little bit of Monument Hobbies Burnt Red and Monument Hobbies Bold Pyrrole Red, and we're going to use these on the lensy bits for his helmet. Thank you for that follow, friend. I hope you're having a fantastic day. We're painting up some Death Guard and showing people how we do ours. Quick, easy, to the point. Okay. I'm going to take my burgundy, and you can mix this up however you want with the actual brush you're using to paint with, not that brush. And I'll probably take a drop over here to the side and maybe take a drop of my advanced flesh tone and my warm brown. And I'm going to get this nice pinkish brown flesh color. You guys can see that nicely. Spilling water from my palette everywhere. That's fine. I'm going to wipe most of that off of my brush. And once I'm done, I'm going to kind of do a nice quick layer over things like my pipe here. Kind of just hanging around mainly just the top. And that's going to sit nicely over our Sigvald Burgundy and give more of a fleshy tone to all of our little gangly bits. Same with these little tentacles hanging here. I might just use the side of my brush, kind of accent the tops of them nicely. Same with this little guy. Your poppy is popping. Don't I know it? Thank you very much, my friend. I'm gonna hit this little tentacle bit over here. Maybe we'll hit just the tops of this little tentacle here. Remember, we're maintaining good brush control. Using the side of our brush, we're trying to not get any of these colors on our white armor. Let's hit his tongue up just a little bit. Just the top of the tongue. Make that look real gross. Maybe we'll touch the top of this. I feel like we need a little bit more on this little bit. So by just touching the top of this, you can still see a little bit of that gradient of that Vulpus pink underneath. And it just adds a nice little color change. Now, if you overpaint, that's totally fine. Take a little bit of Vulpus pink, maybe add a little bit more water so it's very saturated. And you know what? Let's come back through and let's just hit the bottom of this and bring some of that color back, you know? I'm painting with paints that are thin enough that I still have the ability to come back and add in color. Like I added too much on this tongue here. So you know what? Let's get some more Vulpus pink. Maybe add a drop of water, unless it's already nice and saturated on our palette. And let's go touch that tongue again over that skin tone, and we'll bring back some of our existing gradient. Boom. And I think I like that. Maybe hit more of the insides of these little tubey bits with that Vulpus pink again. There you go. I think that looks nice and fleshy and gross and exactly how I want it to. Easy peasy. Okay, I'm going to take some of this anthracite gray again. And I'm going to fix a little mistake that I made right here. There you go. On Switch, there's Rise. I still play Monster Hunter World pretty regularly on PC and Xbox. I've got like 1,600 hours across both platforms. This is a step. Once you start layering over your contrast paints with what other colors, with blah 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 blah. When you start layering over contrast paints with whatever color you choose, this is really where you have a little bit of freedom to kind of either fix mistakes, add in some color, add in some nice gradients. This is where I'll spend a lot of time doing some fun blending. But this step is not necessary. You can easily go just straight from the contrast paints, blocking out your colors and throwing on the streak and grime. I like to just make my minis just look a little bit extra. Add a little bit of gradient there. All right. So now we're going to start with that burnt red. And we're going to come in. We are just going to try to paint the eye nicely. Does not need to be perfect, just needs to be there. Once we put on our streak and grime, it's going to start building some shadow and bring out a little bit of detail. So I'm not cleaning my brush, I'm just dipping right into my bold pyro red now. And I'm wicking most of that off, getting a nice point. And I'm coming in, and I'm pulling from the outside into the center of his face. You could use oil washes. Personal preference, I'm just using streak and grime because that's what I started with my Death Guard. So due to just wanting to be consistent, that's just how I'm doing them all now, you know? But you can use oils, you can use whatever you choose to build that grime effect and that gradient. Got a little bit of red on the tip of this nose here, so I'm going to go back to my grass green and I'm going to kind of clean that up a little bit. But I have oils, so I can do some oils one of these times. And this is what I was looking for earlier with my orange and my yellow paint. I was looking for these nice little pimples that hang around, and you know what? There's a couple here on his helmet. So I'm going to take my orange and I'm just going to touch the tops of those. And then I'm going to go into my yellow. And I'm going to put a little dot on every one of those. I don't know how well you can see that. Look at that. I forgot a hose back here. Let's mix in a little bit of our lighter blue in with that anthracite gray again. And as we're going brighter, we're painting less. I feel like we should make this tank orange as well. What do you guys think? A little orange yellow right here. Let's get some Griffhound orange again, and let's paint the backside of this. And let's go right into our Andale yellow, and let's pull that into the front. We'll let that dry, so it kind of just creates that nice blend. All right. Time to do the backpack. So you can use whatever kind of dark silver you have. I'm going to take some Monument Hobbies dark silver, which I am almost out of. Yay me. A little bit of my Josana's Magic Mix that I showed a little bit ago. Nice flow medium. Throw that in that metallic paint. And 1 sec. And I'm also going to get some Duraluminum from Vallejo in their Metallic Series line. So, I'm going to mix that up nicely. Then without cleaning my brush, I'm going to immediately start mixing that into my Duraluminum and create this nice bright yet dark silver color. I like this blend of metallics here. It's probably one of my favorites. And we're going to start painting this on all of the chain bits and the majority of his backpack. You can use whatever metallics you want, whether it be lead belcher, bronze, bright gold, whatever color. What color do I want this to be? The bronze in there. I'll make the silver. Let's make this silver. Kind of just deciding now what I want to be what color, you know? Bronze, gold. Yeah, let's make this silver. Get some more of this orange. Throw that back there. And in yellow. Let's throw this up here because it's the backside of that same tank. Alright, let's get some of this darker silver from Monument Hobbies. Let's maybe just hit the little connector bits.
backs of these legs, which is an annoying step. Take time, be controlled. Maybe we'll get this little vent tubey thing. Big or small, let's get all of your metallic bits painted. Little backpack details. Maybe we'll get the spikes on this guy as well. This is usually the longest step, is painting on all the metallics. Definitely want to be a little extra careful, right? Okay. I think we're going to move on to our bronze. Well, we're using bronze from Monument Hobbies. There we go. And some dark bronze from Monument Hobbies. So with our dark bronze, I'm going to start hitting the entirety of everything that's not painted on this backpack. Let's paint this guy up. And I'm not being perfect with my layers. I am just kind of being pretty messy with it, because it's just still gonna look cool. We're painting Death Guard. They're messy guys. Still being very careful to not get this on anything else that we've painted. All right, let's get this gun as well. Yeah, let's paint that bronze. Let's deciding whether I wanted this inside bit bronze, but you know what? I think it looks good. So let's do it. Denethor, how you doing? Okay. I think that can be left alone. Let's get a little bit more bronze on this guy. Okay, now we're going to use that light bronze. We're going to get most of it off our brush, and we're just going to kind of touch what we just did, just to get some color variation. Even in our bronze hues. Paint a little bit more down here. A bit more on the tops of this guy. Top of the gun. Dig it. Doing pretty good. Recording a little quick how-to for the Death Guard. Alright, I'm going to take a break from the metallics because metallics are crazy. Take a break from the metallics after I hit up this bit and hit these up. These should be silver. And then we'll make that silver. And we'll make this silver. Alright, we're going to take that burgundy and we're going to layer, sticking mostly to the top, and we're going to take that mix where we kind of had that little bit of a fleshy color, and we're going to kind of just pull that into our burgundy. We're going to do it on the back side as well, but we're definitely going to do a lot less. Okay, I'm going to take some of this advanced flesh tone and some of that warm brown we were using earlier. And I'm going to touch just the highest points of this face here. Just to get that detail pulled out. I did not finish them. I'm still working on them. I think I'm going to take that same mix and pull that into this face over here as well. Taking a break from Rodriguez. I kind of just I was going through a bunch of videos and I have a lot of bad video, and I want to upload a video on how I'm painting up my quick streak and grime scheme on my Death Guard. So I'm doing that today. For a kind of a, how did that plague bear get inside of his pauldron? He just shoulder tackled the thing real hard. I think I'm going to take some of that Griffhound orange. I think I'm going to just put a little bit of this into this horn as well. Over that skeleton horde that we put on previously. And now I'm going to take some of that Iander yellow, however you say it, and I think I'm just going to touch the very, very top of this horn. Just to bring a little bit of life to it. Alright, now let's get our pure burgundy. Now we're going to put that right over that. Again, we're painting a little bit less, sticking to mostly the raised edges. On these clothy bits.
Doesn't have to be perfect. We just want to add a little bit of variation in color. And again, our layers are not too thick. We're keeping nice thin layers so we can just blend nicely as we go. All right, let's get back to our metallic. So next, we're gonna get some Balthazar Gold by Citadel. And I like to put just one drop, one or half a drop of Josana's Flow Medium, just to help that flow a little bit better. Monument Hobbies and metallics tend to be a little thick sometimes. And now we're going to paint any detail you would like to be Balthazar Gold. So I'm going to do the trim on the pauldrons. I'm going to do all the filigree of flies. And we're being very careful. We're maintaining positive brush control. This doesn't need to be perfect. Doesn't need to be one for one all the way to the edges because, again, we're going to be streak and griming this model. We just want our colors to be nice and blocked out.
If you have a picture of Vargas, post a picture in the chat. I want to see. Post it in the chat, post it in Discord. If you got safe link, share your art. Love to see it. I think I'm going to get just the front of this little trim that encompasses the belly.
I really need to get better at painting. You're just blocking out colors is better than what I have when I consider a model done. You do not need to raise your standards. The one thing I say about miniature painting, if you are happy with it and you can throw it on a table and it brings you joy and that model or that character brings adventure to your life, that is a finished model. Be happy with what you create. I think I'm going to get the trim on these little legs here.
Give me just a second. I will read your lovely, lovely comments. In a really tight corner here above his knee. Tight corners. There we are. Oh man, these knee scapes. Give me just a minute.
Yeah, but then I go back and I look at my 12 years. I go back 12 years later and look at my Sisters of Battle. Dude, I do the same thing. Like, I'll go back to minis and just be like, what was I thinking? You know, but it's all still subjective, right? You started somewhere and you've come this far, which is just naturally going to happen. Now imagine where you'll be in another 12 years, you know? Or imagine where you'll be in another few months. It's all just creating that repertoire, that muscle memory, that brush control, learning to saturate your paints properly, thinning your paints, layering, adding smoother layers, cleaner base coats, playing with tools like dry brushes. There's tons of things to learn and get better at, but it just takes time. I had more time to put into this hobby than many people have with their busy lives and their families and doing the other things that they enjoy and love. And so I put a lot of effort into being where I am now. Shoot, you know, when me and you met, I'm thinking of Siwaki.
But when me and one of my viewers here, we met in person, you know, and I showed him models that I had finished, that was like when I first started painting. And, you know, now he looks at my stream and, you know, how much farther has he seen me progress? Practice makes perfect. Well, it may not make perfect, but practice makes better. I think thinning my paints is my weakness. That and wanting to just get the model painted and finished tends to lead me to taking shortcuts and being lazy and saying, yeah, that's good enough for the girls we date, then regretting it later on. I feel that. I think that's 100% why I enjoy this quick streak and grime process. Is it's a way for me to just get models on the table and looking cleaner, but still look great, and something I can have fun and enjoy the process of painting. You know, and even this simple concept I've taken into, and I'll show them off in a minute, but I've taken this into my entire Death Guard army. Most importantly, I've painted Mortarion in this scheme, and it turned out great. Could I have done it better? Absolutely. But I wanted a nice, quick concept that I wouldn't get bored of doing. And I would enjoy the final product of. Naturally, if you want more speed for your models, because it's, let's say, you know, you may be a impatient painter, you're going to give up that detail. Unless you're Jose Da Vinci. Still working on all these Balthazar gold details. I said it once, I'll say it again. Metallics can be quite slow at times. Give me just a minute and I'll read your comments that are popping in. I think my positivity and just enjoying the things you paint comes from a person that I hold dear in terms of the motivation, or a person that gave me motivation when I first started the hobby. And that was Goobertown Hobbies. Without Goobertown Hobbies, I don't think I would have dove in as hard as I did and gotten as good as I did. And that's simply because in the back of my mind, I just repeated the very positive things that he would say in his videos about enjoying the process, having fun with your finished result, no matter how good or bad. Just enjoying your time behind the brush and paying attention to what's important, and that is being happy with your result. I am hungry. You want to just cook me up a little bit of those ramens? And would you like to come in here and give me a kiss? Rice and chicken. Yeah, that's fine. Whatever you want, my dear. Hey, baby. Hey, so let me give her a kiss. She got her nails done. She had to show me. I think we get a little bit more of this Proccess gold. Okay, let's get the pauldrons done now. Sorry, I forgot this little bit on a split. Let's get this side too. Okay. Whew. Pauldrons, trim. Aren't they just terrific? My heart goes out to all those Chaos Space Marine painters. So during this step, definitely like painting on metallics. If you need to go back, fix metallics, put another layer on, this is the time to do it. Okay, so let's go back to that orange that we were using earlier. We need to do a little bit of layering on this gas tank just so it matches the other one. Oh, look at that, found some metallics I didn't paint. Gotta get those. And where we're at, our metallics again, let's just go ahead and let's put a little bit of a metallic highlight on every one of these little spikes on his shin. Stick some of this yellow. Some more of that orange. Go back to our Proccess gold and let's get these little areas we forgot. I'm just going to touch the tops of them. Maybe put another layer on these little gun trim bits. Okay, I'm getting my bold pyro red. Let's take a little bit of this into these eyes again for his odd lens, and maybe we'll add a little bit of orange into that. Going back with my grass green now, and doing some minor touch-ups on the pauldron.
I think I'm going to get some of that advanced flesh tone and mix that in with my warm brown. And just go over these little inner bits for these little big pipe here. I'm an advanced flesh tone. What? I think I'm going to take advanced flesh tone and I'm going to come in here as well and I'm going to highlight the teeth on his pauldron face. What are you doing, Dork Depot? If you're not following Dork Depot, go follow Dork Depot. If we can get a shout out for Dork Depot, that'd be great. I think I'm going to highlight his eye as well. Now I'm going to get some white. You can use any white. I like to use an off-white. This white gray. Why is this? My camera wasn't focusing. I like to use this white gray by AK Interactive. So I'm going to take that white gray and I'm going to mix it in with a little bit of this advanced flesh tone that I've been using. And I'm going to hit these teeth. Oh, kind of went a little bit too thin, didn't I? So I'm going to highlight these teeth on this pauldron a little bit. And maybe touch his eye just a tad. I'm also going to take some of that warm brown that we've been using, and I'm going to take some of this white and I'm going to mix that into that as well. And you can play around with this. I'm just looking for slightly lighter warm brown, and I'm going to use the side of my brush and I'm going to pick out little details on this face. Nose, little chin here, doesn't need to be perfect. And I'm going to give that a quick layer, just like so. I'm also going to take some of this orange on this face, and I think I'm going to put a little dot within this little sore on this skull here, or this head. And then I'm not going to clean my brush, I'm just going to go right into my yellow, and I'm just going to touch the very center of that so it just looks a little poxed. It's kind of hard to see on camera, but subtle little detail. I was going to take some of this yellow and finally hit the inside of this gun. Maybe hit this tank a little bit so we can get it so it matches a little bit better to the gun. And I think I'm going to do this. I'm going to take that burnt red and I'm going to really water that down, and I'm just going to wash this over the whole tank here. And when I mean I'm washing it down, it is wet. It is super thin. And I'm just going to put that all over these little tanks. It's a very slow jump in color, or subtle jump in color, I should say. I'm going to take this into this gas tank up here too. The more layers you do, the more prominent this will be. I usually don't do this, but I kind of think I'm going to like the effect it's going to give. Just a nice reddish hue. Just make that a little bit more consistent down here. Might put a little bit of red into the face. Yeah, perfect. That's it. Play around with it, see how you like it. Now, I'm going to take Monument Hobbies Dark Golden Brown. And I'm really just going to start hitting the uppermost areas of these skulls. Doesn't need to be perfect. at all. Just hitting these raised bits. Bring a little bit more life to them. Now with that existing white gray that I used, I like to kind of start mixing that into that dark golden brown until we get a nice skull color. And I'll just start to layer that very lightly in smaller and smaller areas as I paint towards the tops of these little skulls. Let's add a little bit more white to that. This dark golden brown from Monument is a fantastic color. And we're going to start just really throwing this in here. Really tightening up our highlights and choice of placement. Using the sides of our brush where we can. Bring a little bit more life to those skulls. Let's go back to our Skeleton Horde contrast paint. We're going to throw another layer, very thin layer of that over what we just did. And because I just realized I missed it, I'm going to get some light bronze by Monument Hobbies. Or not light bronze, but bronze. And I'm going to get this little mouth plate on this guy painted up, because we did not do that. Alright, did we get the back side of this? We did. Right now I'm just playing around, jumping back and forth. Did I miss any metallics? Let's hit up those metallics. Did I miss any layers? Do I want to glaze in more reds to my tank? Sure. Because it is almost that time to streaking Grime. Awesome. I think he looks pretty nice. All our layers are blocked in. Nothing's overly clean. Everything's just kind of a mess. Semi-quick, semi-easy. I like it. And you can take as much time as you want in this step, obviously, to clean up, layer up, do whatever you'd like to over the contrast paints. So there we are. I'm actually going to take a little bit of this burgundy real quick and some of that white
I'm going to kind of just touch a little bit of these little tentacle bits. This one here on the chest. Maybe the tongue here. Maybe some of these guys. I'm not layering or anything, I'm just kind of putting little dots here or there to kind of build up some variation in color. This is good. We can do that down here. Okay. I missed this little chain bit down here. Oh, we didn't do his eye, did we? Okay. Let's do his eye. Let's take a little bit of white. And then let's take a little bit of yellow. Easy peasy. Don't need to be perfect, right? Take more of this white, mix it with that warm brown. Maybe do one more pass of the teeth. Good enough. All right, streak and grime time. Better late than never. I like to do this in a safe area. We are going to be using enamels. I just got this trash piece of cork that I like to airbrush on and everything. Ooh, everybody stretch. Everybody hydrate. So I'm going to get some white spirits. I have the AK one, so I'm going to use some of that. And AK's streak and grime. So, and I'm going to pull right out of the pot. I have sound off when I'm here in spirit. Awesome. Thank you, Slaps Booty. I hope you're having a good day. Or you can't hear me, so I'll just do this for him. So use my little dropper, get some white spirits. Now I'm going to get a trash brush. Oh, Q-tips are over here. Alright, and then I just got a little tin of makeup brushes, and this is what we're going to use to unapply it. We're going to apply it, and then we're going to unapply it. So let's grab a couple of these. Nice, heck yeah, red. They work great, you know. So, trash brush, gonna dip into our streak and grime. And this is where you gotta trust the process, because we are just going to start slapping that
all over the model. We're going to cover everything. I may go into my white spirits a little bit and really just kind of put some on and help move that around with the white spirits. You can put this on as thick or as thin as you'd like it. I kind of just play around with the consistency as I go. Put a bunch on the face here, a bunch on the backpack, on the horns. Make sure you're getting this into those creases and crevices nicely. Just dip into our white spirits again. Kind of brush this all over. And what this is going to do is it's going to get into those creases and crevices. It's going to build shadow. It's going to grime everything up. It's going to tint things, like our armor is going to turn into a nice bone color. I may have gone a little light on the zenithal, so let's say you dry brush and you use a pure white, and then you put this on and it's not as bone as you would like it. Always keep in mind you can just go back over with a very thin layer of skeleton horde, and you'll pull those colors out just fine. Some people do like to varnish before they do this to protect the paint that they have, but if you remove this when we start removing it carefully and controlled, you will not rip your paint layers off. So we're covering the entire model. And now we wait. I'm going to let that sit for about 10 minutes. I've got other models in front of me that I can work on. But we're going to let that sit for about 10 minutes or until it's mostly dry. You can do the process of going back and forth and layering on more and more streak and grime. Let's say you don't like the first application of it. Put more on, do it again. Maybe let it dry a little bit longer this time. You can play with it as you'd like. A lot of people will only streak and grime specific areas of model. It's a fun tool to use. If you don't like streak and grime, a lot of people will do the same thing that I'm doing now, but they'll actually use oil paints, such as these ones. These Winsor and Newton. We got some raw umber, got some black, ivory black. So a lot of people tend to prefer oils. I like streak and grime because it's just fun. I'm new to using streak and grime myself, and I've just been enjoying the process of using it. And I'm doing all of my Death Guard with streak and grime. While that's drying, I'm going to step away and use the restroom real quick. I'll be gone for about 5 minutes because I'm going to grab a quick bite. But before I go, and while we're waiting for this to dry, man, it's looking cool. I'll show you guys some finished Death Guard models. So here's a cool little blight hauler. After I streak and grime, naturally I'll go through and I'll do a little bit of post layering, just in case things got tinted a little weird and I just want some more detail on. So, and then we add little rust effects here and there and some verdigris. So there's a cool little blight hauler. There's Typhus, or Typhus. The tutorial on how I'm doing my slime bases is on YouTube. Have fun. Here's one of my troops, my little captain guy. Look pretty cool. A little Death Shroud captain. Fun stuff. And last but not least, I did do my entire Mortarion using Streak and Grime. Did do some extra glazing and airbrushing on his wings naturally. I painted him full assembly, and then did use the same method for the majority of the model that we are using here. So quite cool. So I'm painting all my Death Guard like this, and it's been a pretty fun process so far. I like to think that it's kind of a tabletop plus standard. All right. We're going to let this guy dry for a minute. I'm going to step away for about 5. I'm going to need to use the restroom, grab a drink, and really just stretch for a minute, and then we'll finish up and we'll start taking the Streak and Grime off. And if we need to do any post layering, we will. I think we can start on applying some of this. So, and I'm just going to use a nice dabbing motion. And we're just using our white spirits, and we're coming through. And we're not trying to take off all of it, we're just trying to grime it up. I love this step. Like watching all the grime just kind of bring this model to life. Very fun. And this process, this whole process, can be sped up if you choose to just start streak and griming right over your contrast paints. I just like to take an extra little bit of time just to put a little bit more care into my layers. You do not have to do that. You can just start streak and griming as long as all your colors are blocked out. Awesome. Awesome. And that's exactly where we want to be. Nice and cool. I got our base colors on. Got some shadows built. Got grime. He's looking cool. For recording purposes, I'm gonna let this guy dry. I like to kind of just leave him sit for about an hour. So for recording purposes, you know what? Let's do this guy. We went from here with all our base colors. We grimed them up. Looking super dope. And now the next step is going to be, we're going to add a little bit of these rust effects and our verdigris on. But I think I'm going to do it on my little Lord of Contagion here. So, let's let this guy dry. And once it's all dry, you can go through and choose to do some quick layering. Re-highlight all your colors if you want. This guy, I just cleaned him, and you know what? He looks just fine for me. So, we are going to put our stuff aside. Get our wet palette back out. And you can use any kind of verdigris you want. I'm going to just use Citadel's Nylock Oxide. And then I'm also going to use a couple of AK paints, the Medium Rust and AK's Light Rust. So let's put these rust colors on my palette. And let's start with some verdigris. So naturally, I think I definitely want a bunch of verdigris in this little orb. And I am not being too neat. I am just kind of slapping this all around. Putting it inside little details. We'll trace the little rivets. We'll touch the rivets with it. Maybe we'll put some in some of these wings on his little chest emblem. Maybe we'll touch the flies all over here and there. Put a little bit along the chains. What am I doing? Kind of want to put some here, but I'm going to be more careful and put it on the inside. And we'll see how that looks against the slime. I'm not too worried though. It's a Death Guard guy. I'm just painting this army up to kind of be quick and cool. Backside. 400 what? What are you talking about? Oh, little makeup sponges. I don't know what count I got when I grabbed them. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to kind of touch the base of these little flames. And get it all up in the little orifices. Kind of just have fun with this part. Decide where you want to put the Nylock Oxide or any kind of verdigris paint you have. I put some of it in one or two of these little dots here. Maybe some along these pipes. Maybe we have these little rivets. You know what, let's get a little bit of it back here too. On this little rusty bit. Okay. Now I'm going to take some of this Dark Rust by AK Interactive. I'm going to dip my brush in a little bit of water, make this semi-runny. And I'm not going to be too worried. I am just going to really be generous and apply this in all these like crevices and stuff all throughout his armor. Maybe drag some down his armor here or there. Let's get a bunch up here. Anywhere you would like a rust effect to be. You can layer this up with just regular paints, as I'm doing now, because this is going to be my rust effect. So anywhere you want rust, you just touch those bits and you get going. Maybe I'll put some here on that armor. And do a couple passes, a couple layers. Get this kind of situated where you want it. Yeah, I may kind of come in here and just start applying this in some random areas on a scythe. Around the top of the ball here. This is just a fun time. Quick, easy effect. Okay. Looking cool. Looking swell. We don't feel like we're sinking in painting hell. We're going to take a little bit of that light rust now. Oh, why am I using this big brush? Get out of here. And now we're going to paint within the details we just did. We're kind of just going to stipple this in. But the areas you just added your little rust effects, I'm going to stipple this about and just kind of lighten those up. You can be as clean or as dirty as you want with this. Again, you can use rust effects if you want. I was trying something new, so I'm just using a couple 8K colors. Add some color, add some vibrancy, have fun, be random, and still get something I think looks cool. Super fun. If you want to take it a step further, you can grab a little bit of yellow paint and just touch a couple details within that bright rust layer. think I'm going to add a little bit more verdigris. Around some of these little bits. This is the time where things may take longer or may dry quicker. So you have some freedom to mess around with things. I received 4 bloodthirsters. What? Why? I'm going to take some yellow. I'm going to add a little bit more yellow into the horns. Damn. And that's it. Let's go check on our other guy that we were working on today. So still pieces of this that need to dry. As a quick example, what I was trying to explain before, I don't like how white some of his bits of armor are, so I'll take a little bit of that skeleton horn. Skeleton horde. I think I said horn. Take a little bit of that skeleton horde, and I will kind of water it down slightly. Not too much. By sitting on your palette, it should be just fine. I'll take a little bit of it, and I'll just start kind of brushing towards the upper part of the model. And as you can see, it'll just kind of tint it to where we wanted it, giving it that still very pale bone, whitish bone hue. You know, you can see the front side and the back side. See that this leg is a little bit too white, so I'll just take some of this skeleton horde, and you know what, let's just pull towards the most raised area of this leg. We'll get a couple passes here, a couple passes there, and that's it. So once you're at this level, you definitely want to give it some time, let it dry. We put on some contrast paints. We did a little bit of post stippling and layering. You don't have to do that step. So we put on some streak and grime, and then from there, once you have your finished model and it's all dry, kind of like this guy, you can do as much or as little post layering as you want. And then you can go around with the verdigris and any kind of rust or just lighter and darker orange paints, and kind of just stipple in little rust effects, make it grimy, make it dirty, go back, tint your armor a little bit more or less. You really have the freedom to mess around. I'm going to throw more skeleton horde on this guy. Obviously, I'm painting up a bunch of dudes in front of me. Ah! Let's take some of that skeleton horde and let's tint this leg up here. There we go. There we are. Yeah. Post-stricken grime if you want. I'll tend to go through and put another layer on my metallics. Sometimes it'll dull them down just a little bit, so I'll kind of just take the side of my brush, brush that across some of the metallics. But that's it. That is how I paint my Death Guard and how I've been painting all my Death Guard models from start to finish. It's a very quick concept, quicker concept, because you can take your time and do what you want. But yeah, the bases, I'm doing the slime bases with some PVA glue, some green stuff orbs that I'm cutting in half and gluing them on, as you can see here, to look like little bubbles. Any rock bases, I'm just basing in a nice brown, and then we're just painting that slime on, covering it with some Nurgle Rot technical paint and calling it done. So quick and easy, and that is all I have time for tonight. I gotta work tomorrow. For those that hung out with me here live on stream, I appreciate you guys just being here like you always are. I know we're cutting it a little close, but as you guys know, I'm starting that my new position and everything and having fun and figuring out my schedule. I will be streaming Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays. I'm going to try to stick with that schedule. Wednesdays are definitely going to be my longer streams, even though I'm cutting it short tonight. We're going to shoot around 4 hours. But yeah, check out the tutorial as it goes up on YouTube in the next couple days. I'm going to have my buddy try to edit it up. I know it's going to be crappy quality because I'm new to all this, but like, follow, and subscribe.